Welcome. You're listening to Sons and Kings, the Psalm 2 show where we unlock the church's ancient battle cry of divine filiation and embrace the gentle kingship of Christ through the riches of the Christian tradition. Happy Tuesday. Let's begin. All right, welcome back. We're here continuing our discussion of verse 1 here with Pat and Lewis as always. How are we doing, guys?
I'm here.
Doing great.
Excellent. So just remind everybody, verse 1, what is that?
Why have the Gentiles raged and the people devised vain things?
Amazing. I think at the end of last week, we were just starting to touch on to some like allegorical, a lens for the verse. So what was that, Lewis?
I know at the end of last episode, we are starting to talk about, when Christ is walking the Via Dolorosa and you have like the people on that, a lot of things happening, a lot of tumult on the sides, probably again, people crying, people weep, but then also these people kind of enraged and like cheering on and like kind of just an opposition to God, truly like God right there, the face of God, opposing him to his face. And although some of them are Gentiles, I'm sure there may be a few like sprinkled in there, or God-fearers. I'm sure many of them are Jewish people. So it's not about necessarily like the nations as Gentiles, as non-Jews, as much as a spirit and kind of opposition to God that was operating at that time, which can operate in any people at any time. This kind of like just opposition to God. And I think that then brings it into like our own personal lives, how we can have kind of this rage of the Gentiles, if you will, like kind of rage of the nations against God's will in our own lives and God's rule in our own lives. And I just reflect on my own times where it's like, sometimes like God does something in your life or something happens in your life and you find yourself kind of getting frustrated or mad at God, like kind of rising up or whatever. And then like later on, like after you got past it, prayed through it or whatever, like you're like, that was so pointless. Like there was no, like that was truly futile.
Yes.
Like there was no, because it's like an infantile belief that God is not for us, or an infantile belief that like God's, kind of love for us as his child is just like somehow just, it's like this black and white thinking that we can get into with God, where it's like, if it's not my way, then I'm like, then he's punishing me, he's against me, or something like that. And I think that is like that spirit of the nations that can rise up in us in a way.
Yeah, one way I like, when St. Jerome translated this into Latin, he used the word for rage is fremuerunt, which fremo means rage, but also means to make animal noises, like to make a low roaring, to roar, to growl. And that this rage of the nations is often expressed as this kind of desire to be, to think of man as less, as just an animal, as his lowest, his basest capacities and instincts. And it reminds me of this point by St. Josemaria in his book, The Way, point 121 in the section on holy purity. He says, there is a need for a crusade of manliness and purity to counteract and undo the savage work of those that think man is a beast. And that crusade is a matter for you. And at least in our times, this expression of the rage of the nations is this kind of denial of God through the embrace of the idea that man is just a beast, and that he's going to be satisfied by the expression of his sexual lusts and just the satisfaction of his appetites to eat. That okay, as long as you're material happy and satisfied, then that's all that really matters. And that's often what the rage of the nations consists in is okay, once that's the point of human life, and if we aren't getting those things as much as we want, then that's a reason to rebel against God. And that's just as you were saying, both then and now has been a longstanding desire of the kings and peoples of the nation of the earth.
Yeah.
When you said Fremerunch, I couldn't help but the movie Dune, like the Fremen.
Oh
like,
yeah.
like there's like they're just like rage incarnate, like just sweeping like the universe with their like bloodlust, more or less. I think so. I don't know if that's where he got it from, but it's a helpful mnemonic.
It's interesting.
At least,
Yeah. Well, and I mean that reminds me too of the point by St. Josemaria where there's a need for a crusade of manliness and purity. And, what's the expression of that crusade? Is it conquest? Well, it's the desire to recapture the true dignity of the human soul, like that's to show what it really means to be a man. That's what the crusade should be about, not this kind of violent expression you're trying to spread across the universe, but the desire to say, hey, no, we're better than this and we're meant for something higher. That's the real crusade we're called to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's this one also quote from Aquinas' commentary on this psalm, and he says in a part of his commentary, the latter, however, are moved by counsel. Oh, sorry, no, this part. The former are not moved sensitively so as to rebel, but rather impulsively. And thus, concerning these people, he says, raged, which is of the beasts. And so this idea, it says here, the former are not moved sensitively so as to rebel, but rather impulsively. It's like this notion that it's an impulsive kind of like rebellion. And I think, again, when we reflect on our own experiences, it's like when we get upset at God, it is almost like just rises up in us. And it's kind of just like almost just like what Patrick was just saying. It's like it's really often with material conditions, like when we feel like we're deprived, kind of like when a kid, if you take away a kid's toy, they just impulsively like it's kind of like an immediate like negative reaction. It's not even like because there's some sensitive appetites of animals that we have that are good, right? But it's like kind of that negative impulsivity that is like this rage of the Gentiles, and also this animalistic rage, right? That somebody sees something of mine, like immediately have to react to it. And so I think that's really interesting, and it's also gives us something to check in ourselves and be aware of our impulses, those animalistic carnal impulses that I think about when St. Paul talks about how it's a war within him. He talks about the old man, and I think of that old man that's at war against the kind of the Christian life within him.
Mm-hmm.
That's like this rage of the nations also, like this kind of constant battle that we have to face.
Nice. No, so that's cool. It's basically getting that same idea that the animals are acting on instinct, and they're not submitting to, and when we're like beasts, we don't like submit it all to our the use of our reason, which obviously is a tremendous gift from God, and maybe seek counsel, apply all the measures of prudence, get advice from people that are smarter or holier than us, and then we just we want to like we want to just do what we want, like we want to follow our wounded will, almost, so to speak.
Yeah, I like that Aquinas follows up that comment by citing Proverbs 19 verse 5, which is verse 12, excuse me. A king's rage is like the roar of a lion. And what you were saying, Jake, it made me think that, the roar of a lion is desire to follow your own will, but also, this kind of pride to impose and control and dominate is also part of the animal instinct, that it's all competitive. And rather than raising those up around you, you want to control them. You want to be in charge. You want to, dominate them. And that's also, it's not just your base appetites, but it's also this desire to be the most powerful, can sometimes also be this animal instinct that we have to resist, in addition to those base appetites.
That's a pretty cool analogy. Like, I guess my basic understanding of the lion is like, to some extent, like we have this kind of glorious image, maybe of Aslan, for example, of like the lion is like, especially the male lion with his mane is like the leader of the pride, but like they're not actually that great at leading in so many ways. Like, I think it's actually the females that actually do the hunting in most prides, and then like to some extent the males are just like these scavengers.
Ooh, controversial takes.
But like, my point being, that there is like an emptiness there, to like this puffed up, and like that mane is just like, you know, especially like you see that in Narnia when Aslan gets shaved, they're like, oh, it's just a cat, right? But that puffed up pride goes right back to like the Anania, right? The kind of the meditating on vain things and what have you.
Yeah. Well, I think it speaks to the Psalms' general drive to meditate on what real true kingship is about. You know, we have the vain king, the bad kings at the beginning, and just to anticipate a little bit, will be revealed who is the true king and what is kingship really about, if it's not expression of power and you know, having your whole people go collect things for you, or no, it's really service and sonship is what kingship ends up being about in this psalm.
It's a huge spoiler.
Boom!
Jesus Christ comes.
Exactly.
All that and more in future episodes.
Why this tumult among nations, among peoples this useless murmuring? They arise, the kings of the earth. Princes plot against the Lord and his anointed. Come, let us break their fetters. Come, let us cast off their yoke. He who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord is laughing them to scorn. Then he will speak in his anger. His rage will strike them with terror. It is I who have set up my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will announce the decree of the Lord said to me, you are my son. It is I who have begotten you this day. Ask, and I shall bequeath to you the nations. Put the ends of the earth in your possession. With a rod of iron you will break them, shatter them like a potter's jar. Now, O kings, understand. Take warning, rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with awe and trembling. Pay him your homage, lest he be angry and you perish, for suddenly his anger will blaze. Blessed are they who put their trust in God.
Hey, this is Jake. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Sons and Kings, the Psalm 2 show. We're really glad that you joined us today. We hope you got something out of it. And if you did, I'd love to invite you to share with a friend, or even just like or subscribe to the platform. It really helps us to get the message out to more people, help more people with the show. Thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode.